Hello gamers.
Shout out to the video that touches on this topic in 2015. I hope to explain certain mechanics in more detail now. Yes, after 5 years. One of the firstly apparent things about playing this game is that something seems fishy about the way the game decides which attacks hit. While the easiest thing to assume is that there is some kind of horrible mistake somewhere, rest assured, this horrible mistake is functioning consistently and as it should be. The way the game handles latency, that is to say, the inherent connection delay between two different players over the internet, is by literally separating your opponent's view of you from your actual self, and vice versa. Your opponent sees you some number of milliseconds behind where you actually are. The higher the ping between you two, the more milliseconds behind yourself you'll be. Your phantom position, for all intents and purposes, is where your HP bar is. Basically, if your opponent hits your phantom, it sends the hit to you. If you're in iframes once your client receives it, you don't get hit. The information I've shared so far kinda unpacks into how to look at DS2's latency, but there are some noteworthy aspects to mention as well, since unintuitive mechanics can seem off-putting, even if they are honestly interesting and help make the game the intercontinental masterpiece it is. From your perspective, a roll will appear late. You appear to hit them, but the hit sends to them before they take the damage. They then have the opportunity to roll your phantom strike, which again takes a bit of time to send to you. In any PvP engagement, there are 4 occupied positions, the spots of both players and each phantom that gets sent to the other end. Attacks use the positions the attacking player sees for collision. Dodge timing is synchronized for the dodging player, notably excluding backstabs, which I'll talk more about later. Your world contains your actual spot and the opponent's phantom. Likewise, your opponent's world contains their spot and your phantom. Phantom range is the difference between your spot and your phantom, relative to your opponent's attack range. In the same way, there is negative phantom range that you can enter safely with your spot, since your phantom won't enter the range for a small amount of time. Both of these are just artifacts of your phantom's position relative to your opponent's spot. Here I show how this system appears with projectiles, which have some other quirky behaviors. Projectiles will always be traveling towards your phantom, but will always appear to travel towards you. In addition, the projectile you see is actually not the one that your opponent fired. The game tries to mimic what a projectile from their position to your spot would look like, but we know that it actually fires from their O spot to your phantom. This difference can mean that a projectile appears to stop at a wall, but actually continues to travel by it towards your phantom. It's very easy for projectiles, especially homing, to be desynchronized between two players. Also, backstabs work if you get them on your end. You just need to grab their phantom. The data of them being backstabbed gets sent. Their client doesn't care what they're doing, they get backstabbed as long as you grab it. This is in contrast to normal attacks, which offer your opponent a chance to dodge your phantom strikes. Their chance to dodge your backstab is by not letting your actual spot touch their phantom's back. As we've talked about, neither of those things will be perfectly visible to them. Note, it's actually not that hard to keep your back safe from this. In order to parry your opponent, you have to position your parrying frame so that your phantom's parrying frames coincide with your opponent's actual spot. This amounts to prediction equal to the animation startup length plus 2 times the latency between you two. There are some other movement interactions which happen when the players are close enough to get in the way of each other's phantoms. This can initiate something called suspended transform desync. Basically, your character and your opponent's phantom can't occupy the same space, but you and your opponent can both pass through your actual spots, meaning your phantoms can end up colliding with your spots in ways that desynchronize either of your phantoms from their position at -1 delta. By predicting and keeping track of both your phantom position and your opponent's likeliest actual position, you gain control over some more complex movements defined by the size of delta, and can utilize suspended transform desync to pull your opponent into backstabs they wouldn't expect, or use attacks against them that gain extra phantom range that they might otherwise be spacing completely correctly. To the untrained eye, these mechanics look like ping spikes, but they're simply the system being stretched, and they do behave consistently. This is the outro. Thanks for whatever. I don't know, maybe someone can learn to adapt after I upload this. I am tired of seeing all of the clueless crying about consistent mechanics in a game that really doesn't owe anyone immediate clarity nor intuition. That's one of the biggest draws this series has, and somehow the audience failed to carry that feeling, that desire to unearth the engine underneath the skin, the struggle to persevere and meet challenges forward. It's as if the type of person to talk about this series is the type to learn what a crowd of YouTubers or Reddit comments considers important so that they can then consider all else beneath them. I want people to open DS2 and try to understand it. Or any game, for that matter. My heart goes out to anyone who has to feel as lonely as I do in this game. It's fun. I play it because it's fun. Yes, I'm aware of things that can put people off about the game. Yes, I do think there are flaws. I have fun despite these things. Sometimes I'm able to appreciate the game more because of those things. I think many other games are flawed too, in deeper ways than this one. To close off, I do not think any aspect of the latency compensation I've gone over in this video is flawed. It offers unique challenges and avenues of skill development that have very soft limits placed on them for complexity. Consider that no person has found the perfect mage nor off-mage build since a major mage benefiting bug was discovered. Consider that to this day we are expanding on the complexity of the non-bug based game. I have spent so much time cataloging and sorting information, ready to receive anything new, and so often I have found ways to continue to be interested by this game. So often I have found a new thing to try. For 6,000 hours, I can say that I have spent most of it feeling like I was exploring something new. After 50 years, I started to feel like I was losing my sanity, so I started to break my fingers, and I would just break my fingers and set them again. I started breaking all my bones. I broke every bone in my hands. I broke my arms, separately, and then I started to break my own ribs. I broke my femurs. It took a while. And then I healed and broke them again. After 5,000 years, my bones were all scar tissue. They had all grown so solidly back together that I was unable to move. And after another 5,000 years of furious, infinitesimal movement, I built up enough muscle mass to spontaneously break any bone in my body, and then I can move again. My body had done so much healing that I healed almost instantly. That is all I do now. Every time I move my body, my bones shatter and heal back into my next shape. If I take a single step, every bone in my leg splinters and then reforms. I don't know what pain is because I have been alive for 10 million years. Okay, Shadow, but it looks like you're just walking normal. I know. Okay, well that's stupid.